there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We are back for another week. I'm really excited about my current guest, the next guest of the show. It's the one and only Ashwin Gane. Man, you've had a pretty exciting year. You've made some amazing music, as people would have seen. You released the Got It EP. You got singles on there, Million, which I've been playing ever since I started talking to your management. So I just haven't been able to get enough. You've also got It, Twilight, Regret It as well. It's pretty incredible the type of music you've been making, but you have been making a lot of tracks, and yeah, I'm excited to hear what you've got coming in 2025. But yeah, you must be pretty pleased with where you're at the moment.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely pleased, and I just want to say it's a pleasure to be on here right now. But yeah, I'm pleased because it's my warm up. You know, it's a pretty good warm up if I do say so myself.
So it's a warm up. So tell me about it. So tell me, you've obviously got a plan
Yeah,
for what's coming out. Most people don't warm up and then they're like, no plan. So you've obviously got a plan. Did you plan it from the beginning of what this was going to be long term?
hard question to answer, but to some degree, yes, I did. I planned this out since I was a teenager. I'm not a teenager right now. It's been more than a decade. But at the same time, certain things happen, and I do find ways to adapt to it. So it's not. So I mean, it's like the art of war. You had to know how to adapt, but you also had to plan in advance. So you had to know how to do both, and I feel like I'm doing both.
So tell me what this plan was when you were a teenager. I'm fascinated in the young mind. In like, a teenager doesn't know everything, right? It's like very much the hopes and dreams of somebody. But what was your ideal scenario when you were originally coming up with it?
Well, I knew I had to make a name for myself using the power of my creativity because it was a gift that was given to me, and you could say it's genetics or whatever belief you may have. But hold on, sorry. Let me put this on sound.
That's okay.
It is. But so I'm going to start my story off. Where do I start off? It's so complicated. But I'm going to start off like this. Before I wanted to do music, I wanted to do film, and I still want to do film. But I figured music was the stepping stone to that pathway later. Because if let's just say, I was about to say Kanye West, but we can't say Kanye West anymore.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, it's cool if Kanye West makes a movie, but if Steven Spielberg makes a mixtape, it's kind of weird. So I figured if I want to do hip, I want to use the music side of myself first. Uh, because I mean that's just the way it works. It's, as I said, very odd for a director to start rapping. I mean, I don't know if I wanted to hear Steven Spielberg rap. So that's kind of what I mean by the long-term plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, if Steven Spielberg did rap, you would be interested.
This is true. I would be the first guy to listen to it.
You never know. Maybe it's his time. Maybe Spielberg needs to come out with a track. We can get Quentin Tarantino out there with a track. We can get a bunch of the directors out there. But I do see your point. I think it is a difficult transition to go from. I don't see many movie stars going into music successfully. I don't. No one really comes to mind.
Yeah, because it's simple. I mean, you had to know how to act, but you also had to know how to do the music part. A lot of actors and directors may not understand that part. But when you do music, you do have to act. So it's easier for someone who's doing music to move into a different field of entertainment because they already have some type of acting experience.
Yeah. Well, you started this by saying you have gifts, whether it be like by belief or whether it be just by genetics. I'm interested to know your thoughts on where you got your gifts from.
Uh, Product of my environment, and also you are obviously people are born a certain way, and I feel like I've been born blessed to have, with creativity. I never really had to force it. It was just something I did. Like, I think my idea for fun when I was in elementary school was to Photoshop, like, and code video games. That's what I did for fun. Like, no one asked me, told me to do it. I just did it. But I was allowed to do it. I had the freedom to do it. So it was a combination of my environment and my genetics.
That's fascinating that you were coding as a kid because I can't. I'm an adult now, obviously, because no adult grows no child grows a beard like this. But I can't imagine even doing coding today as like a thing. I do find it fascinating. I tend to agree that there are lanes that pique everybody's interest, and your job is essentially to find that thing that piques your interest as to like what makes you excited, what makes you happy. Because I think a lot of people get forced into what they think is the right next step or the right thing rather than, hey, what does my instinct tell me and where should I follow that?
Yeah, people they have all these expectations placed on them. They feel forced. They feel trapped. And I think luckily for me, I never felt that way. I mean, whatever traps I may have, they're more I mean, I still do have to encounter stereotypes and all that, but internally I know what I'm doing. I believe what I'm doing is the right path.
Yeah. Well, I think it's music isn't the easiest path to get into. Like it is very much rough and tumble and it's like figure it out as you go. There's no I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like there is a playbook that could work for everybody. There is very much a like you really have to figure it out for yourself and figure out what your lane is and how you're going to navigate it and how you're going to manage all the different moving parts.
I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. But not a lot of people have, I mean, as a spectator, you have that wisdom. A lot of people who are in this business don't have that wisdom. They look at someone like, for example, Justin Bieber, and they have told me, or Chris Brown, oh, just do what he did. It worked, so it's going to work for you. But that's not how it works. And then it didn't work. And was I surprised? I wasn't surprised because they never created.
So
To
why
understand creativity, you have to create.
so why did you try that? So they would tell you, people would tell you essentially, try this person's strategy and you did it. But why did you do it if you never thought it was going to succeed?
Well, sometimes you had to bite the bullet to get to where you need to go to. So, I'm just playing the game. And you have to play the game if you want to make it in music, especially.
Looking back on it now, would you do something different or would you still because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fascinating to me that you're like, I knew this advice was not the best and I still took it and did it. That's like a really, really fascinating mindset to be in, as opposed to I didn't realize or I didn't take the advice. Like it's almost willfully knowing that I have to take wrong advice. And so yeah, I just find that fascinating.
Um, you know, uh, I never give straight answers, by the way. That's too I just don't like doing that. But so first, I mean, my first answer is yes. If they never failed, I wouldn't know I'm right. But at the same time, I would love to go back and just tell my younger self, yeah, you need to walk away. But at the same time, I needed the people around me to understand that you just because someone calls themselves an expert doesn't mean they know what's right for you. So yes or no.
Maybe one day, the weird thing is about like those layers of mechanisms and answers is that only it's hard to find even for you maybe where the real truth lies. Like I think it's when you reflect on the past, you're always looking at like what could I have done differently. I think that's part of what makes humans unique And what makes us complicated is our ability to reflect. And it's almost like this weird torture we put ourselves through.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm moving. I mean, I don't want to say where I'm moving, where I'm returning back to next year, 2025. It's more, those are the type of topics I'm be exploring a little more. Like the Gotti EP was different because I realized people also they need a vibe. And so, my goal with this EP was very simple. I need to introduce myself to the people. And, I don't want to beat them over the head with an agenda. I just want to, if they're working out, you're looking for some new music to play, well, to say, I got it because now you have the Gotti EP. Or you're going to a party, well, now you got it because you have the Gotti EP. That was my goal with this EP. There's like no agenda, there's nothing. Just take it easy, like just enjoy the music.
Until that's for now. When someone
Yeah,
says to me, that's when someone says to me, I'm going to release music without an agenda. That means that what's coming next is music with an agenda.
yeah, you saw right through.
Well, I mean, I have been doing this for a little while, but I'm not sure if you're just telling me what I want to hear. But yeah, I mean, because it is an interesting view to go, hey, I'm going to take a step back. I'm not going to talk about what I probably really want to talk about, and I'm going to placate to the trend, which is energy, which is vibe, which is just music in the background or music that gets you hyped, right? And now you're going, essentially, I'm going to move away from that. That's shown success. Now I'm going to move away from that and actually talk about what I want to talk about.
In a way, yes, but I'm taking I came up with new techniques for this EP, like in terms of how do I record, how do I not so much produce, but more so how do I record. And once you master the commercial way of doing things, you can apply that to whatever you do in the future. When I started off, I was trying to be experimental. Like for example, Regret and Twilight, which are not on the EP. They're a little more. I don't want to say intellectual, but I'm going to say a little more. You got to think about them a little more. Imagine if I did them now with my current toolkit. They'll sound pretty amazing. Because I put out Twilight. I recorded Twilight and Regretted probably 2 years ago, and I only put them out this year. Because that's how this industry can be. It can, whenever an artist like for example, everyone is always talking about Playboi Carti, right? Like, oh, he needs to drop. He needs to drop, but they don't know the drama in the back. Like, he probably wants to drop, but there are people holding him back for whatever reasons. So, yeah, but I'm not, but at the same time, I'm also a laid back guy. So this is still me. It's not like it's not me. It's just a different side of me. And I decided to put this different side of me out first.
What held you back?
This is two words, industry politics.
Can you give me more insight as to what that is? I'm not in the industry, as I'm sure everybody can tell. And I've said many, many times on this show, as a musician I don't make any music of my own. I simply talk for a living. And all I have to do is deal with myself. And then I go, okay, I want to release it. And so no one stops me from doing anything. So when it comes to the value here is for a lot of people, they may look at you and go, hey, this is a career that I love. This is someone that I can aspire to be. This is someone that I can have an example from. And so part of understanding that is also understanding the challenges and the pitfalls of what can get in the way, especially, 2 years to release music is a long time to be sitting on songs that you're like, I want to release this.
Yeah, so and I'm glad you said that. Because you're kind of hinting of where I'm planning to go. So I like that you brought that up. Yeah, but let me explain who are these people. I'm not going to say their names. It won't be professional.
So
Maybe later. Maybe
we can do
maybe
it
we'll put
off
these out
camera.
later. there's these people, they come in, they try to dangle a so-called deal in front of your face. And, since I work, I don't work by myself, I work with other people. So, it's a team effort. And so it doesn't matter if I'm the only one opposing it. If other people on the team want to go along with this plan, I have to work together because it's a team. And, these people, what they'll do is, there's two ways they can get you. One, they'll act nice day one. They'll say, your music is great. We love it. You sign a contract with them, and then, they'll tell you, well, I think you need to make new music, because I don't know what to do with this. Like, but you told me my music was good, so how convenient. But a lot of times you got to understand, it's nothing personal. They want to control you. It's not about your music. It's about controlling you. So in order to control you, they have to put you down. It has nothing to do with the quality of your work. So to every artist, every creative out there, you have to believe in yourself. If you know it's good, it's good. It's really that simple. No one else can tell you it's not good because you know it's good. But I always knew, yeah, what I did was great. And they're playing games, but I'm going to play their games so I can move ahead, so I can build my platform. So that's what happens most of the time. A lot of deceit, a lot of lies.
Did you know that would happen going in, or was that a surprise to you?
I knew it was going to be hard. I just didn't know it was going to be this bad. I
How do you
knew,
know?
yeah, I was
Sorry,
expecting a lot.
yeah.
Oh, no, it's all good. I was expecting the lies. Even as a kid, I knew this industry is going to be hard, especially for someone of my background. Very unusual to get in, right? Very unexpected. A lot of pushback, and I did expect the lies, but seeing it firsthand is very different than the theoretical understanding of it. Um, I was always an academic type, and I don't mean like I'm a teacher's pet. I'm just like I have an academic mind. So what it means is I live in theory. I don't live in the real world. But seeing this firsthand has definitely affected me, good and bad. It's made me stronger, but at the same time, I have seen some not so good qualities in a lot of people.
Yeah. You seem quite careful. Like you seem quite like guarded. Like you're not 100% sure who you can trust.
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people they don't even know that, but there's a lot of people you can't trust. I mean, you can trust a few people, but you shouldn't trust everyone because a friend is a powerful word. You can't call everyone your friend. I'm just careful about who I call my friend.
Is it hard living like that? Like, is it difficult walking around and navigating that?
I think it will be difficult for most people. So this is my warning to all the listeners out there. If you're expecting to have fun and like you're going to be partying every night, that is not the lifestyle of a musician or a creative. But I was always a person who I've always been guarded. So it's not like it's hard for me to deal with. I'm just even more guarded than I was before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's hard to hear sometimes. Like for me personally, like it's hard to hear that your experiences have taught you to have more walls up, to have less vulnerability, to keep the inner you really locked away for a very close circle of people. I think that's a hard thing to hear, but also because I then go, if I was in your shoes, I think it would be really difficult that you're surrounded by people who aren't necessarily out to support you. I just think, yeah, it just sounds really tough, man.
Yeah, well, you get used to it at a certain point. at this point, it's almost like I'm playing chess. Yeah, and this is what I mean by this. I think you already kind of understood that I have an agenda for next year. The way I see it is I'm putting out a guidebook on how to survive. That's what 2025 is all about. I want to take these lessons and put them into music and, help people navigate this thing we call life. But at the same time, I don't want to preach to them. These are just my takeaways from what I've experienced and what I've seen.
Let me
But
ask
hard,
you, because this is a question that comes straight to my mind. It's really difficult. You're in a really difficult position. And maybe it's just your dreams, but like, why would you continually put yourself through it? Like, why put yourself through such torment of being in a industry that is deceitful, is not honest, is clearly against your own kind of moral code of treating people with respect and honesty? Like, why would you keep going forward and keep pushing through?
no pain, no gain, right? And that's the saying, and it's very true. I would say this industry has made me stronger than I ever was. Before I wasn't a doer, but now I am. I didn't know how to defend myself, but now I do. So part of that, like, I think I enjoy that part, the personal development part. It's shaping me out to be who I'm meant to be. Like as a kid, I always dreamed of who I would be, and I feel like my experiences are turning me into that person. So I think that's one reason why I almost like it. As funny as it sounds. So it's free development. Well, maybe not so free, but it is development, and development is great. But most importantly, I know what I have. I have a vision, and I have to put it out, and it hasn't fully been put out yet. And I believe in it so much that I'm going to put up with all this because I believe in my dream.
Hmm. It's interesting the things that people are willing to sacrifice in order to make their dreams happen.
Yeah, so you got to ask yourself, do you want your dream to come true, and what are you willing to sacrifice? And some may say, well, it's not that important to me, and I understand. But if you're willing to sacrifice, you better be ready.
Well, there is the saying, be careful what you wish for, because you might actually get it.
Yeah. And I actually find it happening as I'm becoming that guy in my own personal life. You know, I've always admired people who are, well, I'm gonna be honest. I admired Darth Vader as a kid. I'm like, this guy is cool. Now I find myself becoming more like him. Not, I mean, I don't force choke people, but the good qualities.
Why? I'm not familiar with Star Wars at all. I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day. I was like, I just don't get it. It's not my sci-fi is just not my thing. I can do fantasy like Lord of the Rings, big fan. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into Star Wars. But I'd love to understand, what is it about Darth Vader that you liked and what good qualities you saw in him?
Well, when he walks in a room, you feel his presence, and he doesn't have to ask for respect. He commands respect. Like and that's something I always valued as a even as a young person. I don't want to be that guy who's gonna kiss up to everyone. Like it's either you respect me or you don't respect me. Your choice. But I'm not gonna grovel for it. I'm not gonna ask for it. It's gonna happen. And I mean, he uses the force to make it happen, but I use my talent to make it happen for myself. I use my talent and I use my mind to get the respect I need. So that's
Ash-
what I would for Vader.
Ashwin, there is some real super villain vibes happening right now where I'm like, oh, I can see you're in your villain era.
Yeah, 2025 is all about that. I have a song on there called Puppet Master. But people love a villain. I think we're all fascinated by villains. I mean, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean, I was about to say Sauron, but I don't really see Sauron as a real character. He's more of a force. Trying to think of a better example. I mean, no, I don't think any kid says I want to be Sauron. Maybe,
I don't think so. I think
yeah,
like everyone wants to be Aragorn. Let's be honest. Like,
yeah, Lord of the Rings, it's Aragorn.
yeah,
Maybe Gandalf.
yeah, maybe Gandalf, but Aragorn's just like the rogue, uh, descendant of a king, and yeah, yeah. Who else would you want to be? Unless you want to be an elf. Elves are pretty cool.
I think, I mean, I think either Aragorn or Sauron for me. But Sauron lost. He paid ultimate price.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll probably go Aragorn.
What is it about villains that fascinate you?
So what fascinates me about films is, there's all these rules and that we are supposed to follow, and I feel like they don't get a lot of people far, but a villain is they're willing to break that, and they get the respect they deserve. Like we all deserve to be respected, but we don't get that most of the time. I think the average Joe, they're gonna walk around and all of society is looking down on and I mean, look at what's happening out in the world. I think the people are feeling that. They don't feel respected anymore. And that's why certain things are happening in the world. And I think people are and they're being taken advantage of. Well, that's a whole different discussion. But I think villains, they don't ask for permission. They do it. But I'm not saying I want to harm people. I just admire that they're willing to, a lot of people they want people to like them, and a villain does not care about that. They do what they need to do to get to where they need to go. I liked all the villainy. I'm not about hurting people, but I do think that it's very impressive that they can command or they can command people to give them respect. They can make things happen, and they don't play by the rules. So those are things I admire.
But I think the thing about villains is they often, if not every time, have questionable morality. It is often
They do.
self-serving
Yeah,
rather
they do.
than serving of a higher vision.
Yeah, so I think the perfect, I guess the intermediate is the anti-hero. I think the anti-hero is, kind of like the best of both worlds. That's kind of where I see where I'm, maybe next year is not the era of the supervillain, it's the era of the anti-hero. So you're Batman's of the world.
Mm.
Yeah, Batman is cool. Every kid wants to be Batman. That's a good example.
Yeah. I think, well, what's not to like about Batman? At night, he fights crime, and during the day, he's a billionaire who just roams around and parties. I think every man has had that fantasy. I just don't know how well I would last on zero sleep. But yeah, I do tend to agree. I think everyone's thought about being the Hulk as like being just the strongest in the world, and everyone's thought about Batman.
Yeah, but Batman is kind of messed up. If you really think he's kind of he's a little bit of a nutcase, but that's why I love him. I love that he's a nutcase. It makes him interesting.
Do you
I
know?
like him.
I heard this, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts. I heard this conversation around is Batman really good for Gotham? And on a hip hop show, I'm sure everyone's like, what did I tune in for? But anyway, my show, my rules. But I heard this conversation around is he good for Gotham? Because as a billionaire, he could invest a lot of money into removing corruption, into it creating infrastructure, into actually changing the society. But instead, what he does is he goes out and fights crime. and and so there's an argument to say, is he good or is he worse for Gotham? And I think it's a very interesting thought as to like he could do a lot of things differently for potentially different results.
So, I think it depends on, there's so many Batmen. Like, 'cause it's not just one Batman. If you really think about it, there's so many interpretations of one character. This is kind of my understanding. Bruce Wayne he's a philanthropist, right? So he helps us say he helps provide infrastructure. So, creates, jobs. He donates to the poor. So I think he does that. But, Gotham was so corrupt that he had to become Batman because there are certain things he couldn't do as Bruce Wayne. So I think he was needed in his story, he was needed. Because no matter what, that corruption was always there. All the good he tried to do as Bruce Wayne didn't work because he was trying to he was trying to be the good guy. It didn't work. He had to be Batman. That's one way to look at Batman. But yeah, I believe in some comics he does help the city out as Bruce Wayne.
Hmm. Maybe I haven't read the comics, so I just found the conversation interesting. But I think of what I find more interesting than the characters themselves is why they became who they became. And I think that true for heroes, but also think that's true for villains as to like what got them to be where they got. And I think we're all a bit fascinated by that.
Yeah, everyone loves a good origin story.
Mm.
I'm getting a little tired of seeing Batman's origin story. Like every movie, it's always yeah. The opening scene is always what happens at Crime Alley. I don't think we need to see that. We all know by now. But yeah, origin story. I think has been in human mythology ever since we came up with mythology.
How will you
Uh,
tell your origin story?
well, I had a song called Outside, but I'm probably going to redo that song. So it was called so this how the hook went. I'm on the outside looking in. So that's kind of the role I've always decided to play. I've chose for myself. Like I'm willing to be that guy on the outside who can look at what's going on from a third party perspective. You know, um, and then I'm gonna come in when I need to come in. But I had to distance myself, so that's kind of my origin story. Because there's certain expectations that I refuse to follow. For example, you look at me, most people are gonna look at me and they're gonna assume a few things. Number one, used to be a doctor. You need to be a doctor. You're not allowed to do anything but be a doctor. Number two, you need to own a hotel, or maybe you should own a convenience store. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do what I believe in. So that's what I mean by I'm choosing to go to the outside. I'm going to the outside of what do you expect? I'm deciding for myself whether you like it or not, and I'm gonna do what's right for me. And I think a lot of people need to hear that message because a lot of people they're too scared to fight back, but I'm not afraid. So that would be my origin story.
Did your family be supportive of you moving towards being a musician?
Um, yeah, they are. They are pretty supportive. That's what I mean by I was lucky enough to have a good environment. I think my mother always knew that I was a creative person and I need to have my space to be who I really am. And then I thought to myself, well, if I was able to enjoy this, I think other people should be able to enjoy this type of freedom as well. So that kind of inspires me to keep going as well, because I feel like that's the story I want to tell people. And I feel like it's a good message for them. I want them to be free of all these mental traps.
I think I agree with you, man. I think most of the traps in life are the ones we set for ourselves. They're the ones in our own minds. And whether we realize consciously that we set for them or they build over time because of what we experience, I think those are the ones that are the hardest to navigate because you don't realize they're there. They almost become habits that you're like, oh, this is who I am. I don't like this, or I don't do this. And you create these weird boundaries as to what it means to be you. And I do find that as a just even a thought fascinating.
Yep. I mean, it's kind of amazing how we can let someone else decide who we are. And like, there's only one person on this planet who can decide who you are, and that's you. But I feel it's very unfortunate that a lot of people let others decide for them. So that's what I admire about a villain or anti-hero. They decide for themselves. Whether everyone agrees or not, they're just going to do it. They're going to decide for themselves. To me, it's very admirable.
But there is, to the contrary of that, we live with other people and we live in a social world where, like, it's impossible. Well, not impossible, but it's difficult. And you have to be very intentional about not interacting with others. But so the essence of that is, because you interact with others, it's important that they also see who you are and they also get an accurate picture of who you are, because sometimes there is a difference between delusion and reality. And sometimes the best way to check that is to be like, hey, is what I believe true? And can I stress test that with the people around me to validate that what I think is true is actually true? You may find that the bad things you believe to be true are not so true, and the good things that you believe to be true are not so true. But I think removing that part is a dangerous thing to do. I think it's important to be able to have people in you to be like, hey man, like, you're not going down the right path. I know what you're saying, but I'm hearing something different. I'm giving you a different perspective. I think that's really important to have.
And, going back to our, I guess earlier in our discussion, that's exactly why I tried these other strategies out that I didn't necessarily believe in. Because I wanted to see maybe if they may have no more experience than me. So I want to see if, well, I don't want to put it this way, not so much are they right, but maybe they have a better idea for me that's going to work out and I'm just not seeing it. But now that I've seen so many of them not pan out, I can really say with confidence, I know what's best for me. So I'm not saying to be blind. You can't be blind. Like, I think in history, you see this all the time. A lot of people rise to power and then they create their own echo chambers and then they fall. Like, this is a weird example, but Adolf Hitler lost World War II because he lost touch with reality. I mean, he was already delusional, but he thought he could invade Russia. Like, he really believed he could, because he created an echo chamber for himself, and guess what? He lost. And you know what happened to Hitler after that in his bunker. So I think what he said is very true, and that's why I always like to um, I like to test my opinions. I don't just decide. I do test them out. Because my first love in life was science, but I have two loves, science and music. And well, not music, science and art. So everything I do, I have a scientific method to it. Like, even on this EP, whenever I made a change to a song, right, I always tested it out. I asked people, blind test. Do you like version A or do you like version B? And that's how I decided. But yeah, it's very easy to fall in love with your own lies.
How do you make sure you're not doing that?
I think a good way is just number one, blind test. Do a blind test. Test it out. Try different variants, see what works best. Now you can really know for sure. Okay, maybe this didn't work out, and let me try something out. Uh, Another idea. You know, um, I think of it as a strategist. I don't just go in with my emotion. I like to plan, and to plan, you gotta have a plan A, you gotta have a plan B, plan C, plan D, and I try all of them out, and I see what works. So that's kind of how I stay in touch with reality, and it's very easy to believe my own delusions of grandeur. As I said, Adolf Hitler is probably the worst example of what happens when you do that. Like he did some of he committed the worst atrocities known to mankind because he believed in his own lies. So yeah, you have to you can't just stick to one idea. You have to try out different ideas. That's one way you can stay in touch.
Do you ever act out of emotion? Like you seem like a very controlled person. So I'd love to know, do you ever act from emotion rather than logic and planning? Because you seem quite meticulous. Like I even look at your room, it looks very clean and everything's got its place. And you're just like, yeah, everything's there. Like it seems like nothing's out of place. So I wonder, is there a time where you let the planning go and you're gonna go like, okay, I'm gonna feel this and I'm gonna react like that?
Um, you know, so I'm going to say this. I've learned that feeling and separate and planning are not separate. Because sometimes a lot of this is my intuition telling me. And what I've really learned across the years is my intuition turns out to be right. But sometimes I ignore my intuition because I overplan. So now I base my plans around my intuition, and I don't do it the other way around anymore. Because your gut tells you what you need to know. Like the first thing that pops up to your mind is really how you feel. That's what you should follow. Don't try to second guess yourself because it's now you're tricking yourself. You know what you believe in. Your mind has told you, your intuition told you what you believe in. You should stick to it. And look, if it doesn't work, that's fine, but at least you did what you believed in. But have I ever acted out of emotion? Of course, I mean, it happens to everyone. I try to avoid it, but it can happen. It has happened. But I haven't made any major choices. I take that back. I have acted out of emotion. I say that because, I'm like, oh, he's being nice to me. He really believes in me. And this is when I first started. Maybe I should cooperate with him and just follow his orders because he's giving me, I feel like this guy, he respects me or whatever. And, that's acting out of emotion. But if you think about it logically, his plans for me weren't that great, but I went along with it because I acted out of emotion. So but I try not to do that anymore.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you though about the instinct piece around the gut feeling around intuition. I do think that it is an important piece because I think we get caught in trying to out logic ourselves, that we have an instinct to do something and then we're like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. And you try to tell yourself, you're like, no, 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 don't do that because of this, do this instead because of this. And you try to convince yourself out of what your gut feeling is telling you. And I genuinely have always believed that the gut feeling is there for a reason. It's like evolution of what is there, our biology. It's like almost when you know someone is looking at you and you can sense it, like you don't have eyes in the back of your head, you can just sense it. So it's the same with like, hey, this feels strange or this feels good or I can feel comfortable. I think our evolution has allowed us to feel those things, and we do have to be conscious in our efforts to acknowledge those feelings. Otherwise, you get caught up in simply just thought, and our thoughts can trick us sometimes based on the very barriers that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the human mind has only been in evolution for how long? 500 million years. Or some people may say 7,000 years. I'm not going to decide for you. I'm not going to tell you which one I believe in, but I think you know which one I believe in. So yeah, whether it's 7,000 years or 500 million years, it's a long time. it's been honed in to, I'm not going to say perfection, but it's pretty close. The human mind is pretty incredible of people that embrace what it is instead of I think they kind of that people are becoming cyborgs and robots, and they're not acting like people anymore. I think people we need to be humans again. And part of that is trusting your instincts.
How else?
Oh, technology is great, but it's also it's also biting us, and you know where. I think a lot of people aren't meant for. They can't even comprehend this great gift, and it is a gift. Like the technology is amazing. Like I couldn't do what I'm doing without technology. No one ever taught me how to make music. I used technology to teach myself. Google taught me. I had no instructor. I used the internet, but at the same time, the internet is also a place where you can get stuck in a loop of seeing imaginary lives that aren't even real. And then you start living on that imaginary life, and then you forget who you are. So sometimes you got to remember what real life is and what the dream is. Technology, sometimes you feel like the dream is your real life, but it's not. It's all imaginary. It's not really there, is it? So that's how you can avoid it, in my opinion.
I agree with you, man. I think we are obsessed with this fake land, this invented land. Like you look at how many people they look at Instagram, and the measure of success is let me look at your photos and how many followers you have. The measure of making good music isn't do I like the music? It is how many streams do you get? It is this imaginary scoreboard with like just people. And then it's like, it's just this weird, non human place. Like people aren't real on those platforms. They just aren't because you spend 10 minutes talking to them and you're like, oh, you are completely different to the person that I saw on Instagram or TikTok or whatever people are looking at. So, yeah, I think I find the same. And then you go outside and you're like, you breathe fresh air and you're like, oh, the sun is out. And it's like, it's a wonderful day. And I think we have lost a bit of that. And I think it's only going to get worse. I think AI is incredible with what it could mean for humans. I think there is incredible potential for it. But I also think that we do have to be cautious in understanding what role it will play over time and how it'll affect us long term. And like, yeah, I don't know. I think it is a really interesting time for humanity, this evolution.
Yeah, AI it is truly incredible. But I still don't feel like it's at the point where it's going to be replacing anyone anytime soon. Well, I take that back. Yeah, it has. I heard of a restaurant in LA, and it's a fast food restaurant, and they're using AI automation. So it already has. I think people need to understand. You need to find a skill set that can't be replaced. And that's hard. I know it's a big ask. I'm not, what I have asked for is not simple. It's very difficult, but it's can be a necessity very soon. But for creativity, I don't think AI is going to be replacing anyone because what AI does is copy. It can't create. It can only copies. And I use a lot of AI. I've been using it to expand myself.
It can't
That's
create yet.
yeah, maybe it's going to do it later.
Well, if it has consciousness and it lives, and then it lives an experience, it may not create human art, but it will be able to create AI art in the sense of it will be still art. It'll just come from a different lived experience. I think that's what makes humans unique is that we all live a different life and that we all experience different things. And I think that is wonderful about art, is that it is a journey of an artist that you get in the final production. And I think we'll probably get that with AI, but I do love the idea of the journey to create art. I think a painting that took 5 years to finish contains so much of the artist's embodiment and soul in the piece of work that you can't replicate that. You can try, but there is something different about the original that we resonate with. I think it's the same as a piece of music. I think it's the same as a book. When a book can be created in 2 minutes, I think it's not the same as when you know the author took years to write it and agonized over every single word and tortured themselves in finding the best way to communicate this creative masterpiece. I think that is, in essence, what the difference will be. But I do see a point where AI has consciousness and create its own art. It just will be non-human.
Yeah, I think AI can already create non-human art, but
That's with our input.
that is true. But I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, they probably have AI models not available to the public that already are capable of doing that. Because what we're seeing is like what's available to the public. I'm pretty sure there's more advanced AI out there.
I tend to agree.
But it's very interesting. Like ChatGPT is a language model. It's not really that intelligent. It's trying to copy a human. It really doesn't think for itself. It predicts what a human would say. It's still a model on us. So it's not like truly. I feel like it's not truly AI quite yet because it doesn't know that it's AI.
But I wonder if it's programmed to not know. Like, I wonder, it really, this is the weird thing I actually find outside of the AI is that someone's making AI and someone is inputting certain things that they want it to be able to do and not do. That's what I find really quite scary, because you get that sort of creative ownership in the wrong hands, and all of a sudden you end up with a society that really falls apart because of certain restrictions. So yeah, I think that's what is probably more worrying than necessarily the technology itself, is who controls the technology.
Yeah, yeah. Now that is scary, and that is something to be scared about. Because I feel like now is you know, I remember in the history class they said that trust is illegal, but it looks like it's not. Like, look at what's going on now. All these mega companies are coming back. It's kind of crazy. I never imagined in my lifetime that I was going to see all this happen, but I am. Like, for example, Disney's, you know, look how huge Disney has become. So I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. And whoever controls AI is going to control the future. So I believe that may happen. It's a possibility.
Mm. I'm almost more scared if the government controls it more than anything else.
I don't think the government will control it. I think a company will control it, and they're going to run the show, not the government.
Yeah. See, the weird thing is, this is that we can take a fine line into conspiracy theorizing, because there is a world where you can go down all these thought experiment lanes of like, what if this happens, then that could happen. I'm personally quite conscious of being a catastrophizer. I don't really want to think of the worst case scenario. Like, the hope is that, those worst case scenarios don't pan out, and that actually we get to a point where AI actually makes life better for humans, because fundamentally there are a lot of people who don't live good lives, and technology could support in getting more people out of that place and supporting them in being able to live on average, better quality of life across the board.
I mean, I think it already has. Like, I can tell you as a creative, for people who want to write a song, you can have AI help you out. So it's making a lot of dreams come true. or if I have an idea for a script, and that's what I do before I go to sleep. I like to come up with little stories, and I use AI to speed up the process. And then I bang the story later. So I think it's already helping lives in that way. So, but I don't think anything in life is black or white. It's always in the gray. I think AI is going to help us, and it's also going to harm us at the same time. I can't say how much it's going to help us or harm us. I don't have that power to see in the future. I wish I did, but I don't.
I think it would be boring to be able to see in the future.
Yeah. Well, someone like me may like it because well, I'll like it at first and then I'll probably get bored.
Yeah. Yeah. You may realize that it is all futile in the future and you might as well just enjoy life and you may take a different path. Or you may be the opposite, that you find meaning in. I don't know. I think meaning is created in ourselves. I think we all find meaning in our own lives. And I think it's important to have. And it helps you navigate the challenges that you go through when you can find meaning and you can find purpose.
Yeah, that I do believe in. And that's kind of the goal of my agenda for next year. It's not all I want people to understand is that you have the power to control your own life, and that's all I want people to know. And I'm just an example of that. I'm not telling you to be like me. I'm just telling you you can decide for yourself. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let me ask you about this next year plan. Let me ask you more directly than subtly this time. What's the plan? What are you thinking? I mean, it's almost the end of 2024. I think this will probably come out in early 2025. So I'll phrase it as if we're already there. But yeah, what's the plan for this year?
So this is the plan. God EP was great. I put out 5 songs. Now imagine 40 records coming out. And imagine it all being part of a cinematic experience. Like it's not just music. I wanted audio, visual, all of that. And these are songs I've been attempting to create for 12, you know, 14 years. Like this has been 14 years in the making. I've always wanted to make these songs, but I just didn't know how. But now I do. So that's kind of the plan. And you are gonna hear a story. And there's gonna be a message, and but it's a broad message. It's not so. It's very universal. And that's kind of just putting it plainly. Expect a lot more material, and I'm gonna be in control. There's gonna be no middleman this time. We're diluting the brand. It's gonna be unfiltered. And that's what people want nowadays. They want to see something real, and I don't blame them
I
because
agree.
all this fake. I mean, there's so much fake stuff going on. We want to see something real. So, and that's what's going to happen. So, it's really more of a movement than just music. I plan on making this an experience, a movement, if you will, multimedia, all of that. Like I've decided why delay the film career. Let's just start it now.
Well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see your cinematic experience, your cinematic universe come out next year. I mean, my thought automatically, and maybe this is just the weird personality, my thought process. After you do that, what are you going to do after that? That's it. This is a 12-year, a 14-year project. This is a cinematic kind of long-term plan that is coming out in 2025. And then what's going to happen after that? I find that so interesting. You're going to have to create a new 14-year plan. Hopefully, it doesn't take as long as this one did, but yeah, I think it might be weird to be like, and I've completed something I've been working to complete for such a long period of time.
Well, there's so many parts of the story, so it's going to take me a while to tell this story. Like there's going to be the rise, the middle, the maybe the downfall. Maybe there isn't a downfall. Maybe there's a happy
Let's hope there's no downfall.
it depends on where it's almost like a hip hop opera, if you will. Is he gonna is there gonna be a happy ending or not? I mean, it depends on where you know, and no one's gonna tell you this, but when you make music, it's not really you, it's a character. Because you're speaking to me right now. I'm the creator of this character who happened to be on the EP. Got it? Like he's a character. He's not me. Is he based on me? Yeah, but he's not me.
Yeah, I always
So
think it's
we're
a caricature of you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm just gonna be very honest and tell everyone, yeah, any aspiring musician, you better create your character right now. Don't go and tell people, yeah, I'm just this person. Like you need to create a character. Every great artist knows you got to create something bigger than yourself. But I haven't decided where this character is going to meet his fate. I haven't decided that part yet. It's an evolving story. It happens in real time. As you put a song out, the story has evolved.
Well, Ashwin, there is a risk that the character you play actually becomes the real you. That's always the risk, especially in music, especially in hip hop. I think you see it, that people become the character they were playing. They don't, reality and fiction become so blurred that they are one and the same to each of these people. So I tend to agree with you that being a musician is a caricature, hence why I have this podcast format, because I think it is very difficult to play a caricature over an unplanned discussion for over an hour. I think it's difficult. It's really challenging, but some people are at the point where the caricature is who they are and they cannot differentiate between the two.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. Um, Major artists, I met them, I've worked with them, man. I can tell you, I'm not going to say their names. That won't be nice of me. They are in a trap. Like they feel like they have to be this character 24/7, and it's kind of sad to see. And I see myself as a director. I don't see myself as just a recording artist. I'm a director. I've acted in this movie. Once I'm off camera, off the mic, I'm just me. That's how I keep myself mentally healthy.
Mm. I think fame and notoriety limit that ability.
Yeah, it does. Luckily for me, I don't. It's not something I care for, fame or notoriety. I just want to put my art out. But I do want. But to me, fame is a vehicle to put the art out. I don't want to do it for the fame. Fame is just the tool to get to put the message out, to put the story out.
But you may be famous whether you like it or not. And then you have to navigate the fame, whether you like it or not.
That part, I'm just gonna have to see what happens because I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I would like to say I do, but I don't know as of now. The proper answer would be to tell you all, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay true to myself. I would love that would be great, but maybe I won't. Hopefully I do, but maybe I won't. I can't make that promise.
Everyone wants to. But then when you're famous, you're a brand. You become different. Like you just, and I see it. And I think I see it in people that I speak to and get their insight. I've been blessed being able to speak to as many people as I have on similar topics, on music, on their life. And I think it is a curse. It makes you inhuman. I think they get lost in what it is to be a real person. Like I don't know, for some people, you can just see it in the way that they communicate. You can see that they're not in touch with reality. The things that they think are problems are not problems, but it's a curse of being famous. And so you find problems that don't exist.
Yeah, but you know the crazy thing is, if you deep down, a lot of these people, that's what they really believe. They believe that they've transcended being a human. They feel like they've become more.
Well,
And
that's
it's
that's what
crazy.
fame does. That's what fame
Yeah,
does. It
it's
makes you
crazy.
feel that way. It's the God complex of like, but imagine you leave your house today and you have thousands of people there screaming your name, telling you they love you. Everywhere you go in public, people want your autograph. People like want to take photos of you. You cannot go anywhere without seeing people go, oh, look, there's imagine that 24/7. You cannot go anywhere without that. No wonder they have that. They don't believe that they're humans because that's not a real experience. That's not a human's almost not built for that. We don't know how to handle that amount of attention, that amount of fame. And you look at famous people and you're like,